Is our present your diligent plans.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Good. All right. Okay. Hey, before I get started, just real quick, isn't it amazing sometimes who you have in the room sitting with you that you don't even realize? You're out to a restaurant, you're out of town. You know that we have a United States Naval Academy graduate in the room. Did you all know that? Ernesto, Annapolis grad. Isn't that awesome? Ernesto, it's an honor to have you in the room. It also explains why I use mostly pictures and not big words.
I appreciate it.
Got it. A little inter-service rivalry. I'm a West Point grad, so there's a little friendly rivalry there. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about my company, Diligent Plans. I speak for a living, so the hardest part about this presentation is condensing it into the 6-minute time frame that I have. So I graduated from West Point many years ago, back in '99, went out into the Army, became a captain, I was an MP, got out from here at Fort Bliss. So I've been in El Paso now for a good amount of time. Always had this calling on my heart, knew that I was going to speak or help people in some way. Had it kind of pulling on me in the corporate world a little bit. I went out and did sales and project management and some different things, but I was never quite satisfied. I was always felt like I should be training and helping others and speaking in some way. Just didn't know how I was going to get there. Do you ever have an idea that you knew was going to happen, just didn't know the process that you're going to get there? Yeah. So anyways, I landed at Diligent Plans basically as an effort for me to get into the field that I'd always desired to do. So why we exist? Why we exist? I want you to think for a moment about a time where you might have worked for a toxic leader or a boss. Now, if they're in the room, don't look around, okay? I worked for a toxic leader where you were part of a team and it was dysfunctional, and every day on the way home you're just gripping the steering wheel thinking, oh my God, I gotta get out of this team. Has that ever happened to you? Can you picture that in your mind? Well, I fix those things. I fix leaders and I fix teams. And that's primarily why I exist, because I believe the world would be a better place if we had more competent, inspiring leaders and more high-functioning teams. And it would reduce a lot of frustration. People would be happier. The world would be better because we would work together. And that's really why I created Diligent Plans. So let me get into some of the mechanics of what I do and what it means. Okay, so here's what we do. We do leader development, team building, and inspirational activities. And how we do it is through consulting, training, and motivational events. Motivational events could be all sorts of things. Keynote speeches. I have a couple guys on my team who do strength demonstrations. A couple former NFL players who can rip a phone book in half and do all that stuff. Works great with kids and adults actually too. I mean, we love to see that type of stuff. He's a pretty good presenter. So that's kind of what I do and how I do it. One of the things I learned is, let's see, there we go. One of the things I learned is that the devil is in the details. And I think that saying came about because we often miss the details. And the details is exactly what is setting me apart, I think, in the industry, is because I mind the details. I'm very in tune with everything. For instance, my business card got passed around. If you look at my phone number on there, you've noticed the format. There's spaces, there's no dashes, there's no periods. That's the same format they use in places like Europe to list phone numbers. Have I spoken in Europe? No. Do I want to speak in Europe? Absolutely. So my card reflects my future goal to speak across the world. So that's a detail. That's a minor detail. It may not mean much to you. It means a lot to me. Every time I look at that number, I'm going to speak in Europe, and it motivates me. My logo. There's a lot of stuff that went into the logo. If you notice Diligent Plans here, it's a little darker at the bottom left, and it's a little brighter at the top right. It also goes from gray to red. Does that remind you of a growth chart? Now, where is the growth? To the top and to the right, right? Colors mean everything. It's designed that way for a purpose. Things are flowing towards the growth. So that's kind of some of the detail I put into my logo. And then also the fonts in the Diligent and the plans. First of all, Diligent, this is an old school font. Kind of looks like Old English a little bit. It's because my company's founded in some time-tested principles. A lot of my work is based in biblical stuff, and also in my foundations at West Point, which is 220-year academy. Been around a while. So I've grounded my company in foundational principles that have stood the test of time. Now, why the plans and why this new age kind of smooth looking font? Because I'm relevant today. Grounded in the past, relevant today. So there's a lot of meaning in names and company names and symbols. So one of my lessons I've learned as an entrepreneur is the devil is in the details, and you can make up a lot of ground in the little things. Okay. So some of the stuff we do, first of all, we do traditional classroom training. There's a couple of my speakers here. Here we're doing some preparation before we get out into doing some team building events. Trainings are dynamic and interactive, typically. So this is very traditional in a sense of the trainings you've been to in the past. I mean, we try to engage a little bit more. We do field stuff. This is what I really enjoy. Not that I don't enjoy the classroom, I love getting out in the field. Here I'm doing survival training, teaching a group of men from a local church here how to build a fire in the desert and how to find water in the desert. And then we have a ropes course up top. On location, this is me conducting a leadership camp at West Point. We do full service, meaning I can do everything. Not only train, but I can schedule the whole day and do all the operations. We do keynote speeches as well. Some of my speakers, this slide takes a while to come up, so I'm going to advance this a little quicker if I can. Okay, these are all my speakers. I have about 10 speakers I subcontract to. So I built the company around the company, not around me. That's why it's not called KrisYagel.com, it's called DiligentPlans.com. Long after I'm in the ground, I want my company to go on and change the world. So I built it around the company. And by doing that, I built it around other people, not just myself. So this is a variety of speakers I have all around the country. And then, so here's some of the things we're known for. I'm only going to highlight one in the interest of time. I think I'm almost out. But, and that's service. Service up here. It means a lot to me. When I hung up the uniform, I didn't hang up the desire to give back and to improve wherever I was, my community, my country, city, wherever I was. So that's what drives me, not the profit, although that's important. That drives me in Diligent Plans. And I think the lesson here is be driven by a passion, because it'll really carry you forward in a faster rate than if you're driven by the compensation. The greatest among you will be your servant. And that's kind of how I live. Okay, I think that brings me into a close, and I think we can start the Q&A.
Sit down to 15-minute Q&A.
When you do your presentations, do you focus on the leaders of the company or just the workers or everybody?
Good question. It really depends on the scope of what's needed. I do an analysis with every client I work with, unless it's a one-off event where they just need a keynote motivational speaker. Otherwise, I'll do an analysis and I'll build that into it, where I spend time interviewing people, leaders, workers, and the whole gamut in between, and then I determine who the audience should be. At the very least, though, when I do the kickoff meeting or the kickoff training, if it's a multi-month contract, the leaders must be present and engaged in the room, at least in the beginning and periodically throughout. Because when I leave, change is going to be led by the leaders. I can't be the one that makes the change, just gives the ideas and the coaching to make the changes.
Kris, you're based here in El Paso?
I am, sure am.
And most of your business, though, would be nationwide? Or?
I have some anchor clients here in town. I usually carry 2 or 3 anchor clients right here in El Paso. Some of them multi-year clients. I'm going on my 3rd year with one client, a small 3-month client recently, and I'm picking up another one here next month. So I try to anchor here, and then I go out and speak around the country, or I subcontract to my speakers to do that.
So what are your plans for scaling?
Good question. That is one of my challenges. I'm glad you asked that. So right now, as an entrepreneur, a lot of times we're caught up doing everything, and I'm doing everything. So I'm writing intellectual property most of the time. I'm delivering a lot of times here in El Paso and places, you know, around. So my goal is to get more work to my speakers this year so I can step back and make it more about the company's growth versus my personal growth, you know, as a speaker. So my goal is to get more work to my speakers.
What are you going to do when you have 200 clients?
Good question. Scale proportionally, I guess. I interview clients. I don't take everything that comes my way. I only take things where I believe I can deliver what's needed, and then also ones that fit within what I can handle at the time. So I think I'm scaling intelligently as best I can. Since 4 years, I've been in business 4 years. I've doubled net profits every year since inception. So things seem to be working. It gets a little stressful at times. But.
If that keeps up, in about 40 years, you'll have more money than this in the universe. So.
That's right. You know, great question, and I have. And I've been approached by different companies about using that service. The question was about web conferencing, if I've considered web conferencing. The niche I'm kind of a premier training consulting company. The niche I'm trying to carve out is face-to-face interaction, which I believe nowadays technology is driving us away from that a bit, but I don't think it's ever going to go away. And I kind of want to stay in that niche the best I can. At some point, we may go that route, but for right now, I like to keep the human interaction the best I can. And when I do consulting, I embed myself in companies. I get their company shirts, I get their company hats. If they wear jeans, I wear jeans. I show up and I embed myself. For instance, one of my clients is a high-end event rental company. And I've been out on many jobs, loading chairs and unloading chairs, but while I'm doing that, right next to the workers, I'm talking to them, and they're talking to me, and they're sharing things. And I couldn't get that on a conference, so I try to stay in touch. Good question. Sure.
Two quick questions. I know you're kind of talking about your strategies of you embed yourself with the employees and things like that. But my first question was, do you have maybe curriculum is like a forward, but for your speakers, is there like a handbook that you train them on, or a strategy that you came up by yourself, or are you using some other type of sources?
Okay. Well, I'm kind of building the plane as I fly. All right, so I'm coming up with IP on the fly, intellectual property on the fly, and curriculums on the fly. I have some standard ones that are on the shelf that I use to customize for clients. But usually what happens is if I get a large scope client, I'll write a curriculum based on their needs, and then I'll take the skeleton of that and put that on the shelf for the future. So the more clients I get, the more my curriculum builds. I wish I could lock myself in a room for a month and just write a curriculum, but I got to stay operational right now. So I'm kind of building that. Now my speakers are bound by a set of values. That's the baseline for them right now. So they have a set of values that I made sure that they believed in or bought into when I interviewed them. And as long as they're coming from that value set, I kind of give them autonomy to make their own content at this point. That's not always going to probably be that way. I'll probably have to draw on the leash a little bit and make sure they're speaking company content. But for right now, as long as their values are in line, I'm okay with them being creative.
How do you measure, how do your clients measure the success of your program? And is there a time frame that you're given? And also come back and see whether your consulting was effective for that client?
Good question. So when we first meet, we develop outcomes, and I need to be clear on what their outcomes are and what their goals are. One thing I don't do is I don't work on hours. I used to, I don't like that. I'm not going to work 10 hours a week, 10 hours next week. You're not going to keep track of me. I'm not going to have a time card. You have a goal to meet. Our projected timeline is 3 months, and I will make it in 3 months. If that means I work 40 hours a week to get it done, cool. If I work 4 hours a week and I can get it done, that's what I'll do. It just depends on what their outcomes are and what I think from the assessment they need to grow. Did I answer your question?
Somewhat. The clients, like after the 3 months, are they able to come back to you and say, hey, it did work or it didn't work? What did they do after it did?
Okay, so I guarantee results. We'll sit down at the end and I'll go over every outcome and I'll make sure they're satisfied. If not, I'll extend without pay in most cases to make sure I've met their outcomes. Now, as a business owner, my goal is to hit it by the outcome deadline, because if I don't, that's more time invested and I'm working without pay at that point. But we sit down at the end and do an outbrief, and if I don't meet their outcomes, I make sure I do over the next extended couple of weeks or months until I get there. So I guarantee results. Sir?
I hope this question isn't taken in the wrong light. So I'm a prospective client. How do you demonstrate to me that you have the necessary experience to do what you're doing? So I'm curious on that process, because you get sized up all the time in the private sector by your resume. Unfortunately, whether you're talented or not, your professional resume is going to do that. Can you help me with that a little bit?
Sure. I work largely on references and word of mouth referrals. So a lot of times my clients are warmed up ahead of time by someone who had great success with me. If not, I provide references and testimonials to what I've done in the past, and I give examples of where a company was and where they are now based on when I showed up and when I left. I try to break it down for them. That's been enough so far in every situation to give me credibility.
Thanks.
So you talk about a few different things, that you're dealing with leaders, you're dealing with teams, and there's obviously a lot of really positive and dysfunctional leaders, right? And from some research I've done, people looking at consultants going into businesses and helping them restructure and relook at how they communicate internally and how they operate. Some of them ask some of the same questions, you go about it the same way. Some people already know what their main problems are, but they haven't really addressed them. Have you noticed through the period of time you've been working with clients, have you noticed a repeated pattern of common problems that you see regarding the relationships between the leaders and the team?
Absolutely. One of the biggest trends I've seen lately is people leading through technology and not through human touch and face-to-face contact. It's really easy for us to send emails across the company or to do stuff like that, and a lot of leaders rely on that nowadays. It allows leaders who are uncomfortable looking someone in the face and giving them hard advice or conversations. It gives them a way that they can do it kind of in a passive-aggressive type of way, and it's cancerous to an organization. That's the biggest trend I saw, that I've seen lately. Second trend is we're so busy, we've taken on so much nowadays that a lot of leaders don't take the time, or they can't take the time to develop their team into leaders themselves. So they're not duplicating leaders within their organizations. And that's sad. It makes them more of a manager versus a leader. So that's kind of based on the tempo of today's operating environment. They're just not doing that. They're not taking that proactive step. Give you a great example. I met with a leader the other day who's a branch manager of a financial institution here in town, and she's doing performance counseling, written performance counseling with her team. Now that's a written set of goals for a 90-day period that she revisits with them every 90 days and says, okay, here's how you did, here's how we're going to reset the path for the next 90 days. And she is the first one since, I've been out in the corporate world since 2005. She's the first leader that I saw doing performance counseling in a proper way. So, and I've met, a ton, hundreds of project leaders. So it just kind of tells you where we're missing the mark.
Did she have like a military background? Well, I came out of the military as well, so. I know counseling was like really important in the Army and everything. Was she in the military before?
No, she wasn't, believe it or not. She just, she's a very well-read and well-practiced leader.
So I know one of the things that I, like in the previous company that I was working for, one of the things that I was able to do was, a lot of times help my boss in that sense. Like I would help him, counsel him sometimes, because I think he's been in business for a while, but I've been a little bit longer, been exposed to a lot of different types of businesses. And So sometimes I'm able to distinguish when you have a weak leader or a leader that maybe might not be the right person in that position. So do you come across that as well, where you, because of the fact that you're helping and counseling them, the company, are there times when you have to come and say, look, based on what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, here's some people that might not be the right leaders for your company?
Yeah, that's a really tough scenario to be in, right? And when I first started out, it bit me because I went into a company who thought the sales team was messed up. They weren't producing to where they should be producing. And so they brought me in to do sales training. And I did sales training, and after the first training, I thought, and this is a group of good sellers. I mean, we could tweak the dials just a little bit, but they were good sellers. So I asked the president, I said, hey, do you mind if I snoop around a little bit, meaning can I interview people in operations? And I come to find out there's a bunch of toxicity within the company, but that wasn't part of the scope of my contract, so I really couldn't fix anything. So after a month or so of sales training, he said, well, you're not making any results here, I'm going to leave you go. And I said, okay, but just so you know, I don't think the problem is your sales team, but he wasn't open to that conversation because a lot of it pointed back to him, right? So now what I do is I have very open conversations. I try not to get my contracts, I try not to get them limited in scope, meaning I'll train your sales team, but I want access to everything, because it might not be your sales team. And I want you to give me access to everything. And just so you know, going into this, the problem might not be your folks, it might be partly you. Are you open to hearing that from me in a professional way at some point? And if they say no, then that's when I say, I don't want to work with you because you're not going to change, and I can't give you the advice that you're going to need probably. So I've learned to have open, real conversations in the beginning. It saves me a lot of pain down the line. Good question.
What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned as you've been building your business?
Biggest lessons. There are certain things in the Army, we call them zero defects areas, certain things that you just can't mess up. Identify those as soon as you can. For instance, whenever I'm delivering a presentation or working with a client, I can't mess that up. I gotta deliver. If I mess up some of my admin stuff, somebody will fix that, or it'll get fixed, Don't stay up late working on that, stay up late working on your presentations. So whatever is gonna be an area that could cause you to fail or diminish your image, focus on that. I learned that. Of course, balance, everybody deals with balance. What is the right balance? I don't know. It changes as the weeks change. I try to balance different things differently. But be flexible. And seek counsel. I think my third lesson is I seek counsel from people that have done it, and I'm open enough to realize that I don't have all the answers. I just have a heart for people, and the business part of it, I learn a lot from people like you all.
My question is from what I see, diligent planning, you guys work with a lot of major corporations.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you guys as far as this is an entrepreneurial setting, as far as the smaller based businesses that are wanting to get to that level, but are 3 to 5 employees maybe, or 10 or less, something like that?
Well, good question. My image may look like I work with a lot of big companies, and I do, but I also work with smaller companies. In fact, one of my main clients right now has 7 employees. So they're at the point of major growth. They got to make that jump. So I'm working with them to be able to make that jump. So I do work with smaller companies. I've even worked with a 3-person company before, and that's primarily leadership work. I'll work with the leader and tell them the kind of things they need to do to grow their team and scale the company. I got an eye for operations too, so I can pick out inefficiencies and things that might be costing a lot of time and money. For instance, there's a company recently who had this weird lock system where their salespeople were. It's a financial institution, so where their tellers were, they had this lock system where they had to reach over the door and pull this key out and then reach back over and then unlock the door and then go over and then lock the door again. So I was watching this and I was timing it, 8 seconds every time. So I added that up over 50 times a day, 8 times 50 occurrences, and then I projected that over the week and then over the month, and I said, you know you're wasting this amount of time every month unlocking your stinking locks? And they said, no, I didn't know, just fix that. Buy the, $150, get a locksmith in there and fix that. You put a keypad in this. Anyway, so small companies can use that, and that's, I help with that.
Unfortunately, we don't have time for more questions, but as a thank you for presenting, we would like to present you the 1 Million Cups Fund.
All right, thank you. Well,